Here.
Commissioner West.
Here.
Commissioner Schulte.
Here.
Commissioner Meisner.
Here.
Commissioner Gamache.
Here.
Commissioner Reinert.
Here. Thank you. All present and accounted for. Next, we will move to tax claims and abatements. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Brasted, second by Commissioner West. Further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Brastad.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte. Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye. That item passes. Next, we will consider accepting the regular claims paid over $500 and purchase card claims paid for the period ending May 8th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Look. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Meisner. Further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
Commissioner Brastad.
Aye.
And that item passes. Next, we'll look for approval of the minutes from May 12th, 2020 County Board meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Brasted. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Look. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Then the minutes are adopted. Under chair's remarks today, I just want to make sure everybody knows that we're going to have a public hearing today later in our meeting, and in that public hearing we will be discussing fee changes for Anoka County. And for the public that would like to weigh in or has a question, you can send us an email anytime in the next half hour or so to webmaster@co.anoka.mn.us. That's webmaster, all one word, @co.anoka.mn.us. So as we get to that point, we will read your question or response during our meeting once we get to that public hearing. With that, that concludes Chair's remarks, and we're going to move into committee reports, and I will turn first to the Management Committee report from Commissioner West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item is the Management Committee recommends adopting Resolution 2020-M2, and it is renaming of the Central Communications Department to the Emergency Communications Department. And this decision is based on a need for more clarification about what occurs down there, what it is representing.
Thank you, Commissioner West. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll offer the resolution.
No, the resolution's been offered by Commissioner Brasted. Is there further discussion? Just for clarity, it wasn't mentioned that it is the 911 call center or public safety answering point. That is the main part of our central communications, or what was central communications, and just really clarifying it that it is the emergency communications department. So essentially, like you said, just getting the name right.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I was not very clear.
Well, I just,
Sorry.
for those watching, I wanted them to know what our central comm used to be is now going to be emergency comm, but it is 911.
So I
They know it
didn't
is.
clarify as we were, the reason that we did it. So, okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, we have a new Emergency Communications Department name.
My
item.
next item is the Management Committee recommends approving the tuition reimbursement plan for the Supervisor of Investigations at the Midwest Medical Examiner's Office. We have an employee that's been with us for around a year and is seeking to enhance his skills for us, and it's an MBA program that will augment the individual's current bachelor's degree in coursework in supervision through the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. And considering the scope and responsibility of this role, it is in the anticipated growth of our agency and the performance of this individual, this program will be a great benefit to our medical examiner's office.
Very good. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Reinert. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Look. Further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad, Commissioner West.
Aye.
And that item passes.
And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner West. Next, we'll move on to the Transportation Committee Chair Report. And I have 3 action items for you this morning in our Highway Division. First, we'll consider recommending approval of a resolution entering into a contract MnDOT Advanced Construction Agreement with the Minnesota Department of Transportation for the reconstruction of Osborne Road between Trunk Highway 47 and Trunk Highway 65 in the cities of Fridley and Spring Lake Park. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Meisner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner West. Further discussion? I was just, Joe's here with us now, and he can do anything you want to explain on this, Joe, or?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, fellow commissioners. My name is Joe McPherson, I'm the Transportation Division Manager. So this item here essentially allows us to advertise the project earlier. Typically with these federal projects, the fiscal year begins on July 1st, so we wouldn't be allowed to bid till then. That puts the bid opening into August, and then a start date closer to September. This gives us a little latitude to open the bids earlier and then work with Alina, because they're responding to COVID, as many of us know. It gives us a little more latitude to work with them.
Very good. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad, Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
And that item passes. This has a lot of the same words in it, but it's a completely different agreement, so we'll read through it. We'll consider recommending approval of a resolution entering into a contract with MnDOT Cooperative Agreement Amendment with the Minnesota Department of Transportation and the City of Columbus for the reconstruction of Hornsby Street from 350 feet south of Trunk Highway 97 to 1,500 feet north of Trunk Highway 97, and from 1,100 feet east of I-35 to 2,600 feet east of I-35. Is there a motion, or is there an offer of the resolution?
I'd like to move approval.
There's an offer of the resolution. Any further discussion? Joe, any info on this one?
Essentially, Mr. Chair, no, just the only thing to add here, this is a city project, and we are the sponsor as the county. And the nice thing is MnDOT stepped up here. We discovered that there's some additional unsuitable soils underneath the westbound right turn lane onto the new Hornsby alignment. And so they stepped up and said, we're gonna likely expand that roadway in the next 5 to 10 years. So just to preclude any additional work in the future and tearing up what they've done already, they're gonna work with the city right now and cost share the project. So it's a good thing.
Very good. Further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad, Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte, Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
That item passes. Next, we'll consider recommending award of contract to Bituminous Roadways Incorporated in the amount of $704,439.95 for a multi-agency joint effort project to place bituminous surfacing on several parking areas at the National Sports Center in the city of Blaine. Is there a motion to approve?
I will move it.
Motion by Commissioner West. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Meisner. I would just comment that the bids came in very favorably, and we are partnering with the city of Blaine to do this project, and we're splitting that cost 50-50. And so because the bids came in favorably, we're going to move ahead with this project right away. Any further discussion? Seeing none, it's a roll call vote.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad, Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
That item passes. And that concludes my transportation report.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Gamache.
thank you. Just while we have Mr. McPherson here, I just had a quick question for him. The project going along on Bunker Lake Boulevard, through Andover has gone very well. And just based on some questions that have come up over the weekend, I'm sure you saw some of those. Where are we in the projects? Or how much do we have left to do? Are we done, completed? Where are we in the project?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Gamache. So that's the microsurfacing project. This is the first of its kind in Anoka County. As you've seen, what we have down on the road out there so far is that first leveling lift. It's the first of 2 lifts. So right now it looks like it's kind of a half-done project, and that's a lot of the comments we're receiving. Essentially, we just filled the ruts, we filled the cracks, and then this week, weather permitting, it looks like we might get a little rain this afternoon. Weather permitting, we're going to put the last lift. It'll go from curb to curb. It'll look much better. So essentially, it's been done. We had three days last week, probably 3 days this week. So the whole project took 6 days for all that work. So we're excited to see what happens.
Yeah, it looks good, but there were some people were wondering, and I didn't want to speak out of turn, and I knew that if they had the expert, we should make sure we ask him the question. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Learning.
Thank you for that. And while we're on the topic, it's not just Bunker Lake Boulevard, of course, it's Main Street and Round Lake Boulevard. And as you drive those surfaces, they look a little rough when you look at them because the way they drag this application on, it leaves little tracks. But that all gets covered up with the second lift, and we're assuming it'll look great and drive perfectly smooth when we're done and hopefully preserve the pavement life for a long time.
Yeah.
It'll be much better. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. That does conclude the transportation report, and we will move into the Finance and Capital Improvements Committee report. Commissioner Look.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Finance and Capital Improvements Committee met on May 19th. We came away with 3 action items. The first is that the committee recommends the county board approve the following master contracts for electrical program. Contract C0007954 with Venco out of Forest Lake, and contract C0007955 with Wolf Electric out of Isani, Minnesota. As members know, we maintain these master contracts so that in the event that we have a master electrician, of course, on board, but in the event that there's more work than they can handle or work that has to be done expediently, then we can rely on these master contracts to get that work done. So,
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner West. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Brasted. Further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Look,
aye.
Commissioner Brastad,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reiner.
Aye.
That item passes.
Mr. Chair, the second item is the committee recommends the county board approve the Stepping Stone Emergency Shelter Lease Agreement, contract C0007956 with an effective date of July 1st, 2020. And will automatically renew with successive one-year terms of a total of 3 years for June 30th, 2023, unless terminated earlier. Essentially, the changes here are covering utility costs that we have, that we've been absorbing, but that we would like to require them to cover. So,
Very good. Is there a motion to approve?
I'd like to move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Reinert. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Meisner. Further discussion? Commissioner Meisner, then Commissioner Gamache.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was not able to actually view this committee when it was in session, but I just have a couple of questions because I want to say that we have not increased any of their costs for, several years, 6 or 8. And then I noticed too that this is a sliding scale, which is great. But really, my question, I guess, kind of derives with the timing. While it sounds like we've been absorbing those utility costs with COVID-19, was there anything in particular about now that we started to increase?
Commissioner Look.
if Andrew's willing to, he's stepping up to the podium, if he's willing to address that, that'd be great.
Yes,
Andrew.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Meisner, my name is Andrew Dexter, Director of Facilities Management and Construction for the county. So this contract expires June 30th of this year. And so as we looked at kind of renewing this contract, we did talk about the utilities. And I thought that Rhonda was very gracious in the way that we talked with Julie and said, hey, due to COVID-19, let's not even do anything this year with adjustments in those rates. Let's go ahead and start these adjustments in January of 2021. And so Julie appreciated that response. And so per the memo, you can see in January there's a certain amount that adjusts, and then in April another amount, until we catch up with where we truly should be. Julie did express appreciation for the way that we were willing to make that adjustment in a timely manner versus now.
Thank you very
Commissioner
much. And yeah, and I agree, the flexibility of this is really great. And then I guess my only follow-up question then, and this is specifically because of COVID-19 hardships, in the event that they are experiencing financial hardships, is there more flexibility with this? Or is...
I would just comment that we're always flexible, but at the same time, we need to treat all our tenants, nonprofits, all the same. We need to make sure that everybody's living up to their lease and their contracts. And so we would have discussions if it came to that point, but I'm not sure that there's specific flexibility built in here other than the staged payments in the beginning.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gamache.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kind of just a quick follow-up. I just want to thank you for being flexible and working with them. That's worked out really well. The executive committee had a meeting on Friday, and they're all in agreement moving forward. So it'll be on the Stepping Stone board meeting later this afternoon, and I expect that it will be approved there as well. As a member of the board, I won't be voting. I'll just abstain.
Thank you, Commissioner Gamache. Further comments? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Brassad.
Aye.
Excuse me. Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte. Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Abstain.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
That item passes. Item 3.
Mr. Chair, item 3 is the committee recommends the county board reject bids for the Bremen River campus exterior lighting parking lot expansion project and request authorization to rebid only the exterior lighting portion of the project. There's some inadequate lighting that's out there. There's some maybe movement of individuals in the evening that might need to be better lit in that area. And so we did go out for bid on this. The bids came in a lot higher than engineered estimates, which something went wrong there because we're seeing pretty good bids these days. But at any rate, we want to reject these bids and then just go out for the exterior lighting portion of it, which is most critical at this point.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Brassad, second by Commissioner West. I would only comment the same thing that Commissioner Look just did, that we're getting pretty reasonable bids in our highway division for bituminous, as we just witnessed on the parking lots at the sports center. So it's interesting in turning down these bids and rebidding that at some point. Makes sense. And the other part about the security lighting, safety first, has always been our motto here. And we want to take care of our employees out there and any of the public that visits that campus at night. We want to make sure the lighting's safely appropriate. And again, with the parking lot, with the COVID-19 response that Anoka County has had, we're changing how we do business, sometimes long-term, some of it's just for the short term, but we're not quite sure how much of that campus we're going to continue to use or how much we may be pulling back from that and putting people back in this building. So to build a parking lot right now doesn't make good sense, so I'm kind of glad the bids came in high so we didn't have to make that decision. Any further comments? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that will pass unanimous.
Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Look. Next, we will move on to the Human Services Committee report. Commissioner Brassad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On May 19th, the Human Services Committee met, and we do have quite a few items. The first 3 items are all on the consent agenda. They consist of contract renewals and grant funding applications. They're considered to be routine and can be offered in one motion, and I'd be happy to offer that.
All right, the motion's been offered. Is there a second?
Second.
And there's a second. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad.
Aye.
That item passes.
Next item is to recommend the county board enter into contract renewal with the Anoka County Sheriff's Office for the Fraud Prevention Investigation Unit in the amount of $287,883 from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Meisner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Reinert. Further discussion? Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just commentary, some things that I shared in the actual committee meeting, because there was a question in regards to this. And I just remember the presentation, which I believe is given every fall, kind of more in depth around this program. But when I heard about the Prevention Investigative Department, which is rare, so it's unique to Anoka County, but it saves, I believe, millions of dollars every year by preventing fraud. And so I just wanted to put that in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we take great pride in that, actually, that we stay on top of that from an enforcement perspective when it comes to human services programs. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look, Commissioner Brassad,
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
That item passes. Next item.
Recommend the county board apply for supplemental dislocated worker funding from the Minnesota Job Skills Partnership Board and deed in the amount of $150,000 from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Meisner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gamache. Further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Brassad.
We do see with the high unemployment rates that the dislocated workers program will probably be very busy when things set back down.
Very good. Further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye. And that item passes. Item 6.
We recommend that the county board enter into contract amendment with the Minnesota Department of Health in the amounts of $166,973 for public health emergency preparedness and $63,078 for the city's readiness initiative, for a total of $230,051 from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. I'd be happy to move that.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner West. Further discussion? Commissioner Brassad.
Just wanted to point out that this year's grant responsibilities are anticipated to focus on the COVID-19 response.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
That item passes. 7.
Consider recommending the county board enter into contract with Lauk Civil Engineering in the amount of $230,000 to serve on the Rice Creek compost site relocation project.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Meisner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Brassad. Further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
And that item passes. Next item.
Recommend the county board enter into contract a cooperative agreement renewal with Centennial Independent School District Number 12 for use of educational space at the Anoka County Juvenile Center in the amount of $163,210 per year, which is a 3% increase from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2024.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move approve.
Motion by Commissioner Reinert. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner West. Further discussion? Seeing none, it's a roll call vote.
Commissioner Look. Aye. Commissioner Brassad.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache. Commissioner Reiner.
Aye.
And that item passes. Items 9A and B.
The resolution 2020 HS8 is the economic assistance bills, and I'll offer that resolution.
The resolution's been offered. Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Brassad.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
That item passes. B.
Resolution 2020 HS9, accepting gifts for human services. This was some volunteers contacted in Anoka County and wanted to donate cloth masks to the Anoka County Corrections Department and Juvenile Center residential programs. And I'll offer that resolution.
The resolution's been offered. Further discussion? Seeing none, it's a roll call vote.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert. Commissioner Look. Commissioner Brassad.
Aye.
And that item passes.
That completes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Brassad. Next, we will move to the Information Technology Committee report. Commissioner Gamache.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The committee met on May 18th here at the County Board, along with via WebEx for many employees from home. And we had no action items, but we do have a couple informational items just to mention. And that's why Susan Vreeland's here, because she can walk me through any things I mess up. Item number 1 was the Information Technology Committee consider for informational purposes an update on contract C0004283A with TDS Metrocom LLC to extend the agreement under the same terms and conditions for 6 months to February 28, 2021. And Susan, you want to just give us quick details on this extension?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, members of the County Board, I'm Susan Vreeland, the Director of Information Technology. So back in 2015, the County Board approved a contract for dial tone service through TDS Metrocom. Now, many of you know that since then we've acquired a new telephone system, but we still need that dial tone to get out and talk to folks. We had planned and are looking at some technologies that may replace the way we deliver that service now, both from improvement in services perspective and ideally, in my mind, an improvement in the cost investment we make into this service. We had intentions, commissioners, to look at putting together and going through a rather extensive RFP process, likely starting in the February or March time to get us to a new solution, ideally by August. Clearly, our priorities have changed over the last couple of months, and we could very easily have thrown something together and put it out on the street, but I don't think we would have invested the time or the effort or the cost considerations that is needed for this. The bill right now for this service currently runs us about $15,000 a month, so it's not a cheap investment. We want to make sure that when we do it right. And so we received an informational process to go forward with keeping this postponed for another 6 months so that we can do it the right way and really deliver a recommendation that will come back to this board likely early next year.
Thank you, Susan. The other item was that we talked about our information technology CEPs, and I don't know if you wanted to just touch on any in particular, or it was just a good discussion for the committee to understand what we're looking at in 2020.
Certainly. So the IT department is part of the capital equipment plan program here at the county, so that includes hardware and software for departments. And what we touched on the other day, commissioners, was really projects that are over that $100,000 mark. So these are large investments. And really right now, the focus for the county is on either replacing aging technologies. An example would be our attorney's office. Another example would be our jail system. Critical systems that are doing their job but reaching end of life, and we need to look at replacing those technologies. Other areas we're focusing on, no funding required for next year, but a continual project, is imaging in areas like human services that in the past handled massive amounts of paper, and clearly we're trying to make an effort to keep all of that as hands-free and electronic as possible. And then finally, in the IT area, a number of our projects are what I call painting the Golden Gate Bridge. So they're not always as fun or exciting as some of the other initiatives, but they really keep all the bells and whistles in the background moving. And those three projects, Commissioners, are focused on three areas. One, data storage in our servers. Two, our network infrastructure. And three, and probably the most key in this day and age, is cybersecurity. So a couple of years ago, although we were investing funds in cybersecurity, they were kind of buried inside of other projects. And so last year was the first year that we took those investments out. We identified them by themselves so that they have more visibility. And again, we continue to look at safe and fiscally sound investments in that area as well. So that's kind of a high-level summary, Commissioners, of the big initiatives for 2021. Knowing some priorities may change, we always try to build a little flexibility in there too.
Thank you, Susan. I'm sure that wraps up my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Gamache. Before we move to Property Records and Taxation Committee report, I want one more reminder for those who may have joined us late that we're going to have a public hearing shortly. And in that public hearing, if you want to weigh in with a question or a response, please do it at email webmaster@co.anoka.mn.us. So again, that public hearing will happen in a few minutes, and so if you have that question or response, please send that email, and we will respond to that live on the air. With that said, next up is the Property Records and Taxation Committee report. Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And before I start my report, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to the IT to just make a comment that I think might be interesting for the public, because the CEP is a new category. So it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but it falls under the CIP umbrella, Capital Improvement Plan, but it just basically really illustrates a very specific need, and it goes for IT as well as transportation and maybe one other department, but it's a new abbreviation or kind of language that we're using, so I just wanted to make note of that. And I will go ahead then and start my Property Records and Taxation Committee report. So we met on May 18th of 2020. We only have one action item. The committee recommends the county board adopt resolution number 2020-PRT2, authorizing the abatement of Anoka County property tax penalties in response to COVID-19 pandemic. And I will be happy to move that resolution.
The resolution's been offered. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to go a little bit into more detail. And first, I wanted to thank our PRT committee, too, for unanimously bringing this forward to the board. So when COVID-19 first emerged, I immediately saw that we are going to have financial strains both for residents as well as small businesses. And I know originally I really wanted to do as much as possible to help with financial relief. I had very good intentions. I was thinking about, can we do deferment type of options? It became really clear to me after some research that that is just not feasible, because the county collects property taxes not only for the county but also for other tax jurisdictions, schools, and cities. So in order to keep the revenue flowing, and especially during COVID-19, that was not feasible. However, this is something that could be done, and we are under heavy regulations from the state as well. So to be able to offer slight relief for people who are unable to pay for the May 15th taxes can now pay July 15th, potentially without any penalties. The other thing I'm going to make comment about this is that this is a standalone resolution. So as time goes on, I can imagine the financial strains will get worse and not better. So this allows this board then to revisit this and bring it back if need be. And that is really my only comments about this. Thank you.
Further discussion? Commissioner Look.
Mr. Chair, can we read the resolution, the whereases?
Sure, absolutely. So Resolution 2020-PRT, authorizing the abatement of Anoka County property tax penalties in response to COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has caused an unprecedented disruption in the lives of the residents of Anoka County, and whereas the disruption caused by COVID-19 includes an increase in unemployment and other serious economic effects, and whereas the increase in unemployment and other serious economic effects caused by COVID-19 pandemic creates the possibility that some Anoka County residents may be unable to fully pay required property taxes, And whereas the Anoka County Board of Commissioners finds that it would be unjust and inequitable to require certain qualifying taxpayers to pay penalties associated with unpaid property taxes when payment of those taxes has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas the Anoka County Board of Commissioners hereby passes this resolution to exempt qualifying residents from the accrual of penalties for late payment of certain property taxes as more fully set forth below. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Minnesota Statute 279.01 Subdivision 2, the Anoka County Board of Commissioners hereby authorizes the Division Manager of Property Records and Taxation to grant a one-time only abatement of the property penalty for late payment of property taxes for the first payment missed due to financial hardship directly related to the COVID-19 state, federal, or local emergency declaration. Be it further resolved that this one-time abatement of penalty will only apply to current year non-escrow residential and non-residential properties, with under $50,000 annual property tax owed for all properties owned by the taxpayer, excluding railroad and utility parcels. This one-time penalty abatement will also apply only if the first half payment is made in full by July 15th, 2020. And actually that reminded me too a couple of details. So again, this is really geared towards the small business owner. So again, with non-residential properties under 50,000 annual property taxes. And then also you do have to go through the abatement process and specifically state that this is COVID-19 hardship related.
Thank you. Further discussion? Commissioner Look.
Mr. Chair, I just want to comment. I know that many of us have gotten phone calls on this topic. I think other counties have taken similar type of positions on this, and I think it's important to basically communicate that for those that are unable to pay their taxes, to charge them penalty and interest would compound the issue that we're dealing with here. And so I think it's a reasonable approach to this. I know that we've been talking about this for quite some time, and I know that some telephone conversations were, how come you guys aren't thinking about this? Well, we were thinking about it. We just wanted to better identify the scope of the challenge we're going to be dealing with here. In other words, how many people we're going to miss or not be able to pay versus those that could but maybe wouldn't. I'll take myself, for example, on, they postponed the taxes, that you had to get your taxes done instead of April 15th, you could postpone it. Well, a lot of people are like, all right, there's no pressure in getting it done right now. But we wanted to make sure that on the property tax side of things, that if you were able to pay, that you in fact paid, because there's ongoing governmental operations here, school districts and cities that depend on these incomes. And so I just wanted it read because it gives some criteria in there of what, the scope of who this impacts. And I think it does help small businesses, and it helps people out there, and I wanted to definitely emphasize the fact that we've been giving a lot of thought to this and how can we try and provide some relief to folks out there. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I did serve on an ad hoc committee of all the counties who talked about this in a group fashion put together by AMC, the Association of Minnesota Counties. And there were lots of good thoughts that came out of all the counties, and we were able to implement most of those into our resolution to make sure that we've got a comprehensive plan that protects county taxpayers, both those that are struggling and those that are making their payments. Everybody's protected by this. And just one point of clarification, and it's really details that don't matter that much, but this never mentions interest anywhere, because no interest is charged on taxes or late payments until one full year goes by. So this just waives penalties only, which is the only thing that would apply to your property tax if it's not paid on time in the first year. So this, those out there struggling that are not escrowed, you have a reprieve. You've got till July 15th to figure out how to put that money together and come in and pay your taxes, and you will not be penalized for that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad, Commissioner West.
That item passes.
Thank you. The rest are informational items, but I would like to share just a few of them for the public. So informational item number 2, this committee discussed holding the County Board of Appeal and Equalization meeting in person or virtually. Both options are being explored and are going to be considered and then resolved. It sounds like most likely we'll do a hybrid of that. There is 7 board members for the Appeal and Equalization meeting, so to be able to offer a WebEx type of digital option for folks that are either vulnerable, but also to potentially allow the public to come that day and speak as well. Let's see. The informational item number 4, the committee was updated on the elections department, and I just wanted to share a couple of key things that I think would be important for the public to know. So this is from Paul Linnell. Point 1, any Anoka County voter who wishes to vote absentee by mail can do so, and that is available now. Voters can apply online at minvotes.org or contact the Anoka County Elections Office to request a paper application. Another point, in-person absentee voting for the primary election will begin on June 26 at the Anoka County Government Center and all cities. Social distancing protocols and CDC guidelines will be adhered to. And the last point is cities are in need of additional election judges to ensure polling places remain fully staffed for election day, especially those not in the higher risk population. So please contact your city clerk to apply. I know that election judges were challenging to get before COVID-19, but typically it is our senior population that really steps up to volunteer for that. So please, if that speaks to you, contact your city. And then the last update, informational, is number 5. The committee was updated on the PRT Tyler migration project. And so I just want to share what I also shared in that committee. I know that I got a lot of residents who were very frustrated about getting a very tardy property tax statement. And I really recognize the frustration and inconvenience this has caused some residents. This particular in-house update needed to be done. It was about 15 years old. And I say this not as an excuse, but unfortunately this vendor just failed with the deliverables, and we're taking action to do that. But I did want to recognize again just the frustration around that, and to thank you for your patience and your understanding around that. Lastly, there was a public comment, and I apologize. I did not find out what that public comment was, so I can't actually share that in the committee meeting, but I will do a better job of that next time around. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Meisner. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Property Records and Taxation for their work during this update process. I know it was evenings and weekends and long, miserable hours trying to get a system to work when you're under the gun, feeling the pressure from other staff and commissioners, but more importantly, the public really wanting to know what's going on. And that team down there just did a fabulous job. So I extend my gratitude to your whole team. Thank you. With that, we will move to agenda item 9. And I will turn the floor to Tony Palumbo, our county attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will now convene a public hearing to consider an amendment to the Anoka County user fees. Notice of this particular public hearing was published in the legal newspaper on May 15th, 2020. And I would ask the clerk to note that for the record, so we do have published notice. And at this time, I would then call on Corey Camp, Division Manager, to address the board on what is the purpose of this public hearing. Mr. Camp.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Palumbo. Mr. Chair, County Board members, my name is Corey Camp. I'm the Finance and Central Services Division Manager for Anoka County. Twice annually, we hold a public hearing to review our fees. And this happens to be the first one we do in each year. And so normally, each department reviews their fees, and through their committees of jurisdiction, they will bring kind of commentary or work with those committees to provide a resolution or a requested adjustment to the fee, whether it be up or down, and to bring forth to this committee and allow the public to comment on the fee adjustments as appropriate and for the reasons. This year, due to COVID-19, we did hold a discussion during Finance Committee back in March. And this was for all committees to come forth and just show what the fee is. That was kind of our way of consolidating this. So in your packet, you have a fee list, a fee review for the May 2020. Basically, in summary, there are a number of departments that are requesting fees. The sheriff has a number of increased fees due to fees that hadn't been addressed for a number of years, and they would be effective on July 1st. In addition to that, the Bunker Beach Water Park, for effective in 2021, has a small increase that they are requesting. The medical examiner has a small fee for one of its services that I believe is cremation, that it is requesting would just increase slightly, effective July 1st. And then also community social services and behavioral health has a addition or a change in their sliding fee for social service fees, and this is to make it basically match the updated 2020 federal poverty guidelines. And also, and finally, our environmental services are decreasing license fees, some very significantly, effective June 1st, 2020. Just as an example, a $3,650 fee will drop to $110. So it's just one example, and there are many others that are on this. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Mr. Palumbo to run the public hearing again, where people will be invited to comment on that, and we will come back for a resolution to adopt the fees.
Thank you, Corey. Just part of the public notice said that any questions regarding this proposed fee structure would be directed to you. Did you receive any public comments since this was published?
There have been no emails sent to the email address disclosed earlier in the meeting.
Okay. And you received none either, did you?
No, we have not.
Okay. So at this point, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I would open it up to the board for questions of Mr. Camp. Any board member have questions? Okay, and at this time, there are no members of the public.
Excuse me, Tony, Commissioner Reiner had his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Oh, no problem. I just have a question on the, there's a couple of increases on the sheriff's office from 110 to 200. A lot of times when you see a jump like that, I have to ask questions. And a lot of times, it's attributed to, administrative fees and such, and justified, but I have to ask the question. There are 3 different items on here that jump from 110 to 200, and I just wanted to see if you could let me know why it's such an increase.
All right. Thanks, Commissioner Reinhardt, Mr. Chair, board members. See, I know the sheriff did address us back at that time, but I think the main reason you're seeing a jump in the fees is these fees have not been updated, I think, since 2013. And so some of these costs are adjusted for the cost that it is for us to provide the fee, because we cannot charge more than what that cost is. And so some of them look more significant, but had we been increasing incrementally, it probably would not have shown that. So this was kind of a catch-up. So we played a little bit of catch-up on the sheriff's office. And that's really what you're seeing.
All right, thank you.
So.
Are there any other questions, Mr. Camp, by the board? Okay. And apparently, Mr. Chair, we have not received any more public comments from...
Still nothing.
Still nothing at this point. Well, if we have nothing, then there are no comments received electronically, and I've received no information that there will be any forthcoming. I would then conclude this meeting and turn the matter back to you.
Thank you, Attorney Palumbo. For us, then, we will consider a resolution 2020-60 relating to fees for various county services, including fees related to permits and licenses and sales of materials to the public and other governmental agencies. Is there an offer of the resolution?
So moved.
The resolution's been offered by Commissioner Brasted. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad. Commissioner West. Commissioner Schulte.
Aye. And that resolution passes. Next, we will consider approving a contract renewal of the Anoka County Property Insurance from Chubb Group through Arthur J. Gallagher of Bloomington for a policy term of June 1st, 2020 to June 1st, 2021 for a premium of $427,594. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Meisner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gamache. Further discussion? All those in favor, we'll do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad. Commissioner West. Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
And that item passes. Next, we'll consider Resolution 2020-61, a resolution supporting the Business for Business program. We have with us today Jaquel Hader to explain this program to us. Jaquel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and County Commissioners. I wanted to go through a presentation today just to help explain this program that the resolution of support is offering. So you should have a copy in front of you. The Business for Business program is a program that was adopted in concept early on when we, as peer counties across the Twin Cities Metro and Economic Development, we talk and we explain what are we seeing with our businesses. And it was early on discussed that we knew there'd be programs coming out through the SBA, the Paycheck Protection Program, the state, Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development as well. So again, my background obviously as the Economic Development Specialist for the county and working with Anoka County Regional Economic Development, I wanted to ensure we could serve our businesses as best we could and fill a gap. And so this program was discussed as an opportunity to leverage private dollars to raise money and then give back into grants. So basically what it is a two-part program. Phase one we call a goodwill campaign. So this is a month of campaigning, basically giving out the message to businesses that are doing well or maybe have separate foundations from their company operations that can give back. And if they give money into this program, they will know that basically the end result is small business grants or technical assistance that will be given out in return. So the phase two will be the grant application phase and technical assistance application phase for small businesses in Anoka County and the other counties that are participating in this program. So technical assistance, to define it, I'll shorten it because I'll talk about it a lot. We'll just say TA. That's accounting assistance. It can be business plan assistance, legal assistance, marketing assistance. So basically there's two options that they could receive and help. Small businesses are receiving a lot of different resources right now. For those of you as commissioners that also own businesses, you're aware of these programs. They're very helpful, but they don't fill all the gaps, and this is another resource that we can be providing, but basically partnering in this program. So we're utilizing partnerships we already have in place. We have partnerships with Minnesota Consortium of Community Developers, MCCD. That's the nonprofit that runs Open to Business for our county. We also have partnerships with Greater MSP, the chambers across the metro, and in our county we have 8 that serve our business community, and then our peer counties as well that have also taken economic development efforts in the last few years in conjunction with Anoka County Regional Economic Development. There's similar efforts going around. So this, again, it's creating a platform for those that can and want to give back, that have been seeing exceptional growth due to COVID-19, or continued success and want to find a way to help their small businesses that aren't doing as well. And then obviously we're going to be leveraging private dollars in addition to these federally funded programs that are coming out through the CARES Act, the programs that were supported at the local level, at the state. And this is really going to help through the recovery phase. A lot of those programs came out during that, what I call the crisis phase with our businesses, when they're all completely shut down and didn't know when they would open. Now with our governor's orders, we're continuing to see that phased approach of reopenings. But as we know, a lot of those reopening plans don't completely overnight help these businesses recover. So I started early on talking about the partnerships that we have. The partnership with Minnesota Consortium of Community Developers, MCCD, is key to make this program work. So that program is already running Open to Business across the metro, and the Open to Business Advisor, again, helps small businesses with technical assistance, connects them with financial tools, gets them ready to apply for bank loans. So they're going to be the administrator of this program. They're going to hold the money, they're going to be raising the money, but basically they're doing that on the county's behalf. So they're raising funds from each county and then putting that into a fund that would then give out grants to small businesses. And also what we call an imaginary fund, a technical assistance, a TA fund, where they're going to be tracking those donations of accounting, legal donations, etc. So they'll be collecting the donations during this campaigning phase. Us as a staff level at the county, we don't see any of that, but they will be reporting at the end of the campaigning what we have in our fund, what companies have donated, and then what companies have donated technical assistance. Because at the end of this, it's going to be a pretty big PR statement to explain, who's been able to step up and give back, and we want to ensure to thank them. On the flip side, the phase 2, they will be also running the grant side of this. So we will not have to process any grant applications. We won't have to review any financials of businesses. They will be doing that on our behalf. It'll be a 10-day application period. Unlike some of these federal programs that came out, which were basically as quick as you could get your application in, was basically whether or not you got funded, especially with the first round of the Paycheck Protection Program. So we'll have a 10-day lottery basis, because most likely we will probably have more grant applicants and we can give out funds or assistance. But the great thing that I'll get into in a little bit is someone will receive some kind of assistance regardless by partnering with MCCD. So back to the pledge or donation campaigning side of this. This is what will be starting basically, going on to June to July. And that will be one application front. We'll have a website called businessforbusinessmsp.com. And that's part of the branding and partnership with Greater MSP is where that brand comes from. So it'll be on that website. A company like Medtronic, if they have a separate foundation and they decide they want to give back. An example of this is they can go to the website, they can pick which county they have operations in, and say that they want to pledge funds. On the flip side, MCCD will receive all those applications. We don't see them, and they'll have to do some due diligence to ensure that if they're donating $1 million and they just put it in the Anoka County Fund, they want to work with our peer counties and say, well, you have Ramsey County operations and Hennepin County. Let's split that $1 million into thirds. So the point of contact that will come from the company donating money will work with MCCD on their pledge. There's also going to be one location they can decide to donate into the entire program, and that'll be split up to the 5 counties that are participating equally. So a good example of this is if Deloitte accounting firm wants to donate 50 hours of accounting services to small businesses, and they want to do it to the entire program. When MCCD receives that pledge, they'll split those 10 hours of accounting services into each of the funds. So again, they'll also have to do the tracking for us and ensuring that we understand who's been giving funds and technical assistance. And will obviously be a big part at the county. Our partnership will be to thank those donors at the end of this. So the grant side of this, it's $7,500 grants is the amount that'll be decided for all county participants. That recommendation came from MCCD, who works again with a lot of small businesses and knows, we can't give out hundreds of thousands of dollars, but what's an amount that really gets them by with some of the bridge financing. And $7,500 is also a typical business line of credit for those of you that are familiar with the bank side of things. 10-day application period, again, random basis. So they'll be going through and picking completely off of no basis at all. Eligibility will be reviewed with MCCD doing all of that work, not county staff at all. And no applicant will leave empty-handed. So basically there's 4 options. They could receive $7,500 in technical assistance and or $7,500 and technical assistance that was donated. They could receive the $7,500, but maybe there was no technical assistance left in our pot to give them. They can get a follow-up with an open to business advisor though. And then the other option is they can get technical assistance and money on the flip side. Let's say they're a grant applicant that didn't meet the criteria. Maybe their financials were looking pretty rough and they're about to close the doors anyhow. That's something we don't want to give grants to, but they can still get a follow-up from an open to business advisor. Or maybe we just didn't have enough funds to give every applicant a $7,500 grant and technical assistance. So open to business will have to prioritize. They'll be loaded up with a lot of businesses that are looking for help additional to their work already. But we'll want to ensure we're going to be working with them to prioritize those that didn't receive technical assistance and money will get a follow-up first. So the great thing about this program is we don't know how much we're gonna raise, and that's a big question mark in every county participant in this. The one thing we do know is if we raise $100,000 and can give out roughly 12 grants, or we raise 0, we most likely will raise something, technical assistance or funds. We're helping 12 businesses that we couldn't have helped already by just being an advocate for a program that's being run by MCCD. The other piece is we'll be able to get more businesses aware of the Open to Business program, connected with that resource. Technical assistance can be almost more important right now than money. A lot of these businesses had vulnerabilities in their supply chain, had vulnerabilities in their accounting. So this will really leverage that partnership and get companies in front of the right resources. So there's eligibility restrictions on the grant recipients. There's a few things that the county, we can decide to advocate for changing. One of them I bolded is the $1 million revenue cap. So a lot of restaurants' revenue streams are usually 2 to 3 million. So we might want to look at an internal committee to partner with the cities and hear from the business community what caps might take out some of these businesses that really could be included as ineligible. Some of the ineligible criteria is obviously nonprofits, corporate chains. We might want to look at a couple of the nonprofits and say, is that really someone we want to take out of ineligible for this program or not? But otherwise, overall, the main criteria is it's 20 or less employee businesses in the metro area that are non-corporations, and that will be consistent across all of the counties. MCCD is not charging us as a county to run this program on our behalf. Again, it's part of this Open to Business partnership. They will be retaining 2.5% of all funds raised to help with the staff cost of giving out grants. So basically, if there's a capacity load of millions of dollars that they raise and they have to give out more grants than they can process in a 10-day period, they can partner with another financial firm and split that 2.5% or discuss with the counties if they have to raise that percent fee retainment. So with that, basically my role as staff on behalf of the county would be to work with our partners. Greater MSP has already taken this to their board and had some discussions. As you know, Greater MSP has a lot of our Fortune 500 companies that sit on the board that have foundations that have wanted to give back, and there's some really good feedback overall. They would be doing a joint press release with all the counties to talk about this program all at once, so the messaging gets out there at one time. And then they would also be working with all of the peer counties participating in this on a video that talks about the small business community, advocates for what this campaigning is really meant to do. And the county, really it's sharing this program with our cities, our chambers. We'll want to make sure to continue to be a resource to MCCD to talk about how it's going to be run once we have monies raised. And then getting out the information to the business community once we open up grants. And each county can decide to specifically target companies and ask them to feel free to give into this campaign. But really, I think that most of the counties are taking it back and saying, we don't want to call companies and ask them to donate money to other businesses. We want to get the messaging across on various platforms that reach businesses, so we don't put a burden on many of the companies that are still facing challenges. So with that said, I wanted to stop and pause for questions. There's a resolution of support, and that resolution of support again gives the county or MCCD the ability to raise funds on the county's behalf. It also gives staff, which would be me in this case, to work with MCCD and our peer counties on the continued success of this program.
Questions for Jaquel? I will just say that I worked with you on this a little bit, and there's a lot of work that went into this, if you can't tell just by looking at what's already been done. It's an opportunity to help our businesses. I think we're crazy not to be a part of this, so I think we should do it. Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just to echo your commentary, I mean, I remember when you just first sort of introduced this, and to be able to actually do something for businesses, because this situation with COVID-19, it's such a helpless situation. And then I guess my only question is, I just wanted to make sure that, so we would be part of a 5-county metro consortium, and then so all the funding that is acquired would be split evenly between the 5 metro counties?
No.
No.
I mean, we are, I'll let Jaquel explain it, but the business that is donating the money,
yes,
or the foundation that's donating the money, donates it to the county that they do their business in. The only stuff that gets split up amongst the group would be some of the TNA, technical assistance money.
Okay.
Or if there's a group that works in every county.
Okay.
You know, say it was a Medtronic. I know they're
Yeah.
not in every county, but if they were, they would donate $1 million and it would be spread amongst all the counties that are a partner here.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Meisner, to specify a little bit more, so a technical assistance firm, so someone that offers accounting or legal services and offers that service across the metro to small businesses, they're gonna probably wanna donate into just the general fund. That would be a donation or a pledge that would be equally split, and they will have that option when they do the application to make that decision. The other piece is if it's a business that they have operations in the county, that's typically where their money would be donated to, and they'll make that pledge. Again, MCCD is going to have to do a little bit of due diligence to ensure that we're not dislocating any of those funds or technical assistance, and that's where the staff discussion will come into play with MCCD. But the important piece is we did look at one fund, but the problem with having one fund is the lottery basis of the grant application side. We could end up giving a lot of those funds to Hennepin County businesses versus Anoka, and maybe a lot of it was raised here, and the equity of that can get really complicated. So this kind of keeps the goodwill and campaigning side into the county in which it was raised.
Commissioner Reiner.
Yeah, just no question, but a statement. I really applaud the work that you've done and that we're involved with this. I think that the county should be doing everything we can for businesses.
Thank you. I agree with that sentiment. I would like to offer the resolution. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And that's unanimous. Nobody's opposed. Next, we will move, thank you, Jaquel.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move on to Resolution 2020-62, advise and encourage support for reopening of businesses and churches who will follow requirements on social distancing, safety, and follow state, local, and CDC guidance. The resolution is in front of you. There is one quick clarification on spelling. In the 8th whereas statement, the word were should read where, I believe. Find that one here. It's agenda item 13. 12, okay. It actually says where and should say were. It's in the whereas Minnesota and Anoka County has followed the CDC guidelines under federal regional gating requirements. We have met the 3 phases that were recommended instead of where. So just a quick grammatical change there. With that, is there an offer for the resolution?
I'd like to move the resolution.
The resolution's been offered by Commissioner Reinert. Now we'll get into discussion. Commissioner Gamache.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know exactly the appropriateness of my first, I guess, amendment or that, but because of the fact that on tomorrow, officially, I believe, churches are able to reopen under the proper CDC guidelines and those things which are listed here in this offer, in this resolution. And then June 1st, 7 days from now, restaurants will begin to open and bars will begin to open. And I'm not aware of too many, if any, local nonprofits that aren't open. And most businesses that I've been aware of that are in places that are considered small businesses that are now able to do curbside pickup. It would seem to me that the majority of this resolution that we're trying to do here is null and void as of June 1st, because all of those things will have occurred. So my first suggestion is that we just table this until after June 1st, and then if we see anything that we don't like or wish to see changed, that we could bring it back at a June meeting, our first June meeting in, that we come together in June again.
Was that a motion to table?
That's a motion to table, sir.
There's a motion on the floor to table. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion's been seconded. There is no discussion on a motion to table. We'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Reinert,
No.
Commissioner Look,
Opposed.
Commissioner Brastad. Opposed. Commissioner West.
Opposed.
Commissioner Schulte,
No.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Motion to table has failed. We're now back under discussion. Commissioner Reinert.
Okay, so it's true that there are some things that can open, but I guess it's how. And whether or not it's going to make enough difference for churches. There's limits on how many people can be in a church. You have some churches out there that hold 300 people, and you have churches out there that hold 5,000. Of course, the proposal that's been put forth is one size fits all. All churches are not the same size. You know, there's businesses hurting and failing every day, and a lot of the things that have been mentioned as far as what's going to be available June 1st are insufficient. One thing that's important in this proposal, though, too, is the fact that we have, this is for any subsequent or future actions. You know, right now we've got a governor that has taken peacetime emergency powers, and he has renewed them and renewed them and renewed them. The power that he's exercised was something that he could do. Personally, I believe, though, that if any extension of those powers should have been legislatively then extended. That's just my opinion, and he continues to extend his powers. It's true that some things can start opening up and some activity can start happening June 1st. But what about into the future? And what about the extension of these powers that the governor has claimed for himself? Basically suspending the Constitution. It could be that we go through the summer, there's a loosening up of some activity, and then we get into the fall, and then he wants to close everything down again. And he could certainly hang on to those powers that he has, and as fall approaches and there is some prediction that there's going to be a backlash of this COVID-19 in the fall again, certainly just because it's flu season, it could have nothing to do with opening up restaurants and bars and churches, and then he could close everything down again. So this resolution is important, not just for our current situation, but into the future, and to protect those businesses from maybe getting some financial help, being able to create revenues again, and then in the fall being shut down again. And maybe that would be their final death blow, like so many businesses have already had that death blow with the extension of these orders that have been hurting businesses from the start. We could sit here and do nothing. We could do nothing. And you can say that this is irrelevant, but it's really not, because of the degree of loosening up that the governor has done. We really need to prompt him to continue. There's already been a lot of cities that are passing resolutions like this, and I think there's going to be a lot more. So I just think it's very important that we make a statement, put this into effect. There are very important things in this resolution as far as enforcement that are important. There is no law is a law unless there's enforcement or lack thereof. So there is a statement in here about that, and I think it's important that we do this. You know, a lot of people say that you know, we need to stay at home and put a mask on and crawl in the corner and wear rubber gloves and protect ourselves. A lot of those people, of course, want their garbage to be picked up. They want certain stores to be open, so as they're sheltering in place, they can, you know, go to the store and buy what they need. They want farmers and pickers and packers to continue to do their work, truck drivers to deliver them. They want their phone and their cable to continue to be working. They want their mail to show up rain or shine and on time. And all these other people out there, they want to continue working and jeopardize their livelihood and their health, you know, for them while they're sheltering in place. I just think it's time to incrementally open up, let people operate, let revenues start, save businesses, churches, because when things do get back to normal, or maybe there is no normal, but when activity does start again, it is going to be incremental. It's not going to be a light switch that turns on, everything just starts again. It's going to be incremental, and we need to get this incremental start now. And we need to have it be more than the governor is allowing right now. The numbers in our state are much lower than others, although other states are opening up much more. We need to have a measured approach to this, and I think that this resolution offers that.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you know, we have all had the privilege of discussing this in a workshop as well, so some of this is not new information for ourselves. But I'd like to start by, first of all, just saying that I too am worried about our local economy. Our small businesses are suffering, and it weighs on me. I've consistently reached out to my district to inquire about how they're doing, as well as to connect them with as many resources as possible. I make sure that I'm updated by our economic development specialists and our chambers, and I do offer support as often as I can. So it is obvious, I agree with you, Commissioner Reinhardt, that this pandemic has hit our businesses really hard, and we will have a very long haul back. But I do ask my colleagues to address and recover from COVID-19 as a public health and public safety issue driven by science and data and not by political trends. In my own effort to not be swayed by political trends, since our work session, I have reached out to many areas of my district because I wanted to hear from them. I do represent business owners, but I don't only represent business owners. Just as our vulnerable include the elderly, but they are not only the elderly. If you include some of our most at-risk folks for COVID-19, they include people with autoimmune disorders, current and past cancer patients, diabetes, people with heart and respiratory conditions, to name a few. So if you add all these up, it actually is 40% of our general population. And I want to do my best to represent my whole district and not just a part of it. So I just want to share some stories that I brought back from my community. In business, there is absolutely a lot of anxiety and frustration, many of which we will be discussing today. The restaurant owners I have spoken with, they are worried, but they do understand that this is a pandemic and are okay with rolling out slowly. The curbside option has kept them afloat. The faith community leaders I have spoken with, they want to protect their most vulnerable and have been doing online services, and many of them will not be doing any inside services soon, even if deemed okay. The nonprofit community is cautious to open up and wants to do so slowly to protect their clients, their staff, and their volunteers. No one is in a rush to open things up immediately, as many of our nonprofits work directly with our most vulnerable. And lastly, I spoke with both nurses and physicians in our community hospitals. They are grateful that we have had strict protocols which allow them to not have their systems to overflow. But now this is an ongoing management because they are continually on the brink of being overflowed with a highly infectious and deadly virus. PPE, or personal protection equipment, is adequate, but it is not abundant. They are currently reusing their N95 masks by putting them out for 3 days for the virus to die off and then recycling them. Now, with the introduction of elective surgeries, this will bring in non-COVID cases to ICU, which means that when there is a surge of COVID cases for ICU, they can easily tip the scales and overwhelm the healthcare system. So those are just some of the stories and perspectives I wanted to share from my district. I want to get a little specific about this resolution. There are about 10 clauses or whereas clauses. So one of the first ones is number 9. Whereas if businesses, churches, and local nonprofits in Anoka County follow safety requirements and social distancing and follow state, local, and CDC guidelines, the Anoka County Board of Commissioners supports and encourages the Anoka County Sheriff's Office to help support and protect these places of work and worship by not interfering with their right to operate. County Palumbo, my understanding with the Anoka County Board is we are a budgetary arm for the Sheriff's Office as well as the Attorney's Office. We do not have any actual jurisdiction for direction for either the Sheriff's Office or the Attorney's Office, correct?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Commissioner Meisner, that is correct. The sheriff and I are independent elected officials. We are governed by 350,000 people in this county. The policies that we set forth, of course, are our policies. They are subject, of course, to working with the county on, certainly on a lot of personnel matters, on a lot of other matters that the sheriff and I certainly have a spirit of cooperation with, but in reality, as an independent elected officials, we set the policies for our own office.
Thank you. May I do a follow-up, Mr. Chair?
You may.
Thank you. And so I did speak about this particular clause in the work session, and I think that this is a confusing message for our local police departments then, and it's a slippery slope. So I do ask us to consider to just take that clause out altogether. I don't see a need to involve or encourage the sheriff's office in any way around this. Is that something that the author of the resolution would
There is a resolution on the floor. If you want to amend that, you'd have to make a motion to do so, or you could talk the original motioner or the offer of the resolution into accepting it as a friendly amendment.
Would the offer be willing to have a friendly amendment to
Yeah,
take out that clause?
No, because I think that your comments about that whereas misrepresents that whereas. It just encourages the sheriff's office to do what it says to do, and that is if a business is operating under the same guidelines that everyone else is, to not interfere with their operation. It just encourages them. It's not an instruction to. We are all well aware that is an independent office from us. And it in no way, shape, or form instructs them to do anything. However, law enforcement is at the core of any of our laws that exist. The only reason why businesses are not opening it is because they don't want the sheriff's office or a police department to come in, give them a fine, shut them down, drag them off to jail. That's why they're not opening. And so to have this encouragement in there in a statement about law enforcement, as far as the county arm anyway, is very important. It's very instructional to those businesses that would open. And I believe that the sheriff's office is actually on board with this. Had some conversation, but they're not going to put anything in writing or anything, but they do support businesses being open that are operating under guidelines that are put in place for all businesses. So
The friendly amendment has not been accepted. Commissioner Look.
Mr. Chair, I don't know that this whereas requires the sheriff to do anything. I mean, he's going to have to make that decision on his own, and he's going to have to stand on that decision. So we're just saying this is our position, and we'd like his position to be, similar to ours, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. If I can, I just want to speak to, I think a statement earlier was that that because a lot of this is going to be changing here potentially on June 1st, that it would be null and void, that this resolution would be null and void. And I don't necessarily see it as null and void. I think it's saying that we're in agreement with some of the changes that are happening. And I think it further identifies other changes that, that may not be included in the June 1st changes that might be coming about by the governor. I too have had quite a bit of contact with some of our small businesses, and some of these small businesses are 1, 2, maybe 5 employees. They're making, one guy made bracelets for if you're a hemophiliac, for example, and you're in a car accident, you have a bracelet to identify your first responders, to let them know that you've got a condition. Was not able to make those, was not deemed critical or essential. And I think a lot of these small businesses got caught in a wave of insanity where they could have very easily operated with social distancing. They could have very easily been cleanly. They could have very easily avoided unnecessary conflict with the public, and yet because they weren't deemed essential, or they had to jump through a bunch of unnecessary paperwork and hoped that somebody had, the state would get back to them, of which they weren't returning phone calls, I'm told. They couldn't operate. And then they were under the fear that they'd be, fined or whatever the case may be. And I think that that was just an absolute travesty. And these poor people that, if you made 1,000% on every single product, maybe you could afford to weather this, but no one has that type of profit margin, to be able to weather these type of things. So that's the one thing I do want to support as many businesses as we can here. I think that they can be responsible and take the necessary steps. I want to remind people that even with opening, if you are following the classifications of the 40% that Commissioner Meisner indicated earlier, I'm not sure if it's 40% or whatever the number is, but if you fall in that classification, if you feel you need to stay home, that's the beauty of the freedom of this country. You can stay home if you so choose. You can stay home for the next 5 years if you so choose. Doesn't really matter, because you get to make that call. And you should probably make some calls if you're really, really at risk. It's not just this pandemic, it's the flu or various other issues that could be coming up that you probably need to be concerned about as well. But the one point I want to emphasize more than anything on this resolution is the last point. Let me read it. Whereas we, the Anoka County Board of Commissioners, declare that we support and will uphold and defend all constitutional rights of our citizens, and the rights of the citizens of Anoka County are granted under the United States Bill of Rights. I think the statements were made in the work session that this is redundant, this is unnecessary, this is, just kind of a exercise in futility. I don't believe that to be the case at all. We stood up here just a few minutes ago and said a pledge allegiance to the flag. Is that redundant every single time we meet? I mean, it's a statement, yes. You can call it a political statement if you so choose. But the bottom line is the Constitution is the law of the land. It is the law of the land. In every single statute that's out there, you hear people flirting with Second Amendment rights. You hear people flirting with freedom of speech rights. You hear freedom of religion. Right now we're dealing with churches that are closed. The right to bear arms, I mentioned, the peaceful assembly and everything else. You hear people flirting with that, and they don't have the right to flirt with it. That is the law of the land, and any statute out there has to be in agreement with the law of the land. It does not have the option to be in disagreement with the law of the land. And yet you see red flag laws or shutting people down, whatever the case may be, arresting people for peacefully assembling out there. And I think this statement for me encapsulates everything this resolution has in this, boiling it down to this statement. And I will stand for the Constitution. I will stand for supporting the Constitution every single day of the week and twice on Sundays. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Look.
Amen.
I'm going to weigh in quickly. I've had conversations with the sheriff recently, and he is autonomous to us and doesn't like the language in here. He's concerned, particularly with the word interfering. He thinks it'll raise an issue for him, for his office, and between us. So I think we need to figure out how we can word this properly. And I know we're just encouraging. We're encouraging him to not interfere with businesses. But he takes umbrage with that. And if he does, I probably do too. I don't know that we need to strike the entire paragraph. We just probably need to fix a word or two. And I don't want to do that on the run here in this meeting, but I think we may have to, or we will create a problem with our sheriff. And I don't want that to happen. Commissioner Reiner.
What word did he recommend?
He did not recommend a word. I know his preference would be to have that paragraph not there.
Well, we need to have that there because it is enforcement is essential.
But Commissioner Reinert, if we're going to call out the sheriff here, shouldn't we call out every police department that has jurisdiction in Anoka County?
We don't have that authority, and we don't have that authority over him.
Right. So if we're going to call him out, shouldn't we call out all the police departments in our jurisdiction and encourage them to do the same?
Okay.
Not suggesting that, actually. I'm, how about, what if we strike by not interfering with their right to operate and just leave the rest? In the meantime, while you think about that, I saw a few hands up. We'll start with Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Commissioner Look brought out another clause, I believe it's number 10, talking about the constitutional rights. And we did have a discussion about this in work session as well. And I just want to be completely transparent about what that heart of that was. I discussed that it was redundant because we are a constitutional county, and I absolutely agree with you. If it's a constitutional right, we support and we uphold that Constitution. And it is only in the court of law that it's determined if it's a constitutional right or not. But the debate really becomes because across the nation, you're seeing constitutional counties and certain resolutions that are very much partisan statements, basically saying if I don't agree with a particular new law or constitution, then we don't have to enforce it. And so that is really where I have a problem. I think, again, it's a slippery slope. There's no reason to have that in there because, of course, we're a constitutional county and we all uphold our constitutional rights. It's when you start getting into the picking and choosing, well, this is what I think is constitutional or what I don't think is constitutional. What is constitutional is, again, deemed by the court of law. Thank you.
Commissioner Reinert.
Sure, I'd be open to an amendment of that. Why don't we change it to, if it's okay with the board, Anoka County Sheriff's Office to help and protect these places of work and worship while they operate.
I think that that helps me quite a bit get to where I need to be.
And I think it would probably help him as well. And as far as this whereas about the Constitution, I'd be okay having that with every single resolution that we pass, to have that whereas present. I see no reason why we wouldn't.
Tony.
Mr. Chair, the only thing I would weigh in on that, I just wanted to clarify for the board, they're not suggesting that we would use county resources, would we, to litigate on behalf of all private citizens if they have a constitutional issue with their form of government or with, say, a city or something. I just want to be clear, this board is not making a statement that while you were in principle supporting it, and of course I certainly agree with that, we all do, I just want to be careful that we don't send a message that now the attorney's office is going to get called on to represent private citizens in their complaints about constitutional issues with whomever they have a problem. I just got an email the other day saying, do you do litigation? I want you to hire on your behalf. That doesn't work. So just, it's just a scope thing. I just want to make sure that whatever we say on the record is clear, that this board is doing this certainly in principle, but you do not intend to offer the services or the resources of this county to support private litigation and people who feel.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Just,
Commissioner
Reinert, that's what I want to clarify on that.
Yeah, and if somebody wants to hire you, it might be a good new revenue stream for the county, actually.
But for the law that says I can't do that.
Just saying.
But I appreciate your sentiments.
There is a modified resolution on the floor. You heard the changes to the whereas clause in the 8th whereas paragraph, and it strikes by not interfering with their right to operate.
You need a second.
If the original offer of the resolution changes it, I don't believe we need to.
Yeah, and so let me just read it again so that everybody's clear. Anoka County Sheriff's Office to help support and protect these places of work and worship while they operate.
And the word "and" stays at the end of that because
Correct.
that needs to move on to the next whereas. All right, that resolution is before us. Further discussion? Commissioner Gamache, then Commissioner Brasted.
Thank you. Earlier, we talked about Resolution 2020 PRT2 regarding property taxes, and through that, we had many whereases, and in each and every one of those whereases, it mentioned COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to make the suggestion and the amendment, or the friendly amendment to change in whereas number 6 from this order to COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to also change it in number 7 where it says order has affected their base of employees to the COVID-19 pandemic has affected their base of employees. And I believe that's the last order that I would like to change.
To the original offer of the resolution, do you accept the friendly amendments?
So state them again, please.
Sure. Item number, or whereas number 6, whereas it currently states this order has caused undue hardship, I would remove the word order to say, replace it with whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has caused undue hardship. And in number 7, where it says whereas this continued order has affected their base, I would change it to whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has affected their base of employees.
Commissioner Reiner.
You know, the thing is I would like to accommodate that, although I don't think it would be accurate. The pandemic in and of itself did not. It is the order that then caused these businesses undue hardship and financial loss. So, yeah, I'd like to entertain that, and you know, so that we can all be a little bit better on the same page. But I really just don't think it's accurate.
Commissioner Gamache, follow up.
Just a quick clarification moving forward then, because all of the things that, in my mind, and where I have a difference of opinion here, but since we are totally and completely making sure that we defend all the constitutional rights, this is my First Amendment one, that this would have happened. It would have been a different happening. It would have been crisis-like. We would have had hospitals overflowing. We would have had more dead people than we care to, even though we are currently at 100,000 almost dead Americans in a 3-month period. And this would have happened, and we would have had businesses closing because no one was going out. No one was going to their restaurants, going to their bars, going to any of their businesses because they were unable to be aware of what was happening. Thankfully, our states and our federal government and the CDC put out guidelines, closed businesses, asked people to stay home, asked them to work from home if they possibly could, and that shut down everything. Okay, so it was the pandemic, because without the pandemic, there are no orders.
Commissioner Reiner.
Yeah, again, I have to disagree. It is the order and the language of the order that did cause the financial loss and undue hardship, because the order didn't have to, I guess, go as far as it did and be as unfair as it was. I went and shopped a lot of different stores since the beginning of this pandemic, but I couldn't go to others. My feeling, and that's really the catalyst for me wanting to do something and come up with this resolution, my belief is that if you're going to let businesses be open and people go out to those businesses and do commerce, it should have been a little bit more fair. It should have been, okay, these are the rules and how you can be open and have people come into your place of business and create revenues for you. And then let all businesses be open under those same guidelines. There may be some situations where there had to be more specific guidelines for certain kinds of businesses. Well, okay. The state has resources, and they could have done that. They didn't even try. And so again,
the friendly amendment is not accepted.
The friendly amendment is not accepted.
Commissioner Brasted, then Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you. And without getting into a lot of the same that's been said, there's a couple things that I just want to clarify. The June 1st, where Commissioner Gamache indicates that restaurants are opening. That opening is for outside patio service. The last order regarding that generated a ton of calls to me. There's people that are not set up to do business at all, don't have a patio. are now scrambling to look at other options in a time when they haven't had any sales or raised any revenue in 2 months. I had 3 calls that day that said that was the nail in their coffin. So I think the gist of this picking winners and losers is really at the heart of what bothers so many of us. And then I think we've failed. As a state, we have failed to protect those that are the most vulnerable. Look at our long-term care facility rates. Oh my goodness, we can do better. I know we can do better. FEMA, for some reason, Minnesota, we are not getting the dollars back to our state. It doesn't even compare. We don't even come close to our neighboring states. I think we've got like $2.4 million of return when others are way, way, way over and above. There's things our state leaders need to do much better. And if we're sitting here saying, we're encouraging our governor, we're encouraging law enforcement, let's do what we can to get back to as normal of a point as possible, while knowing we have to protect those that are very vulnerable. And it gives those that have underlying situations the option to stay home. There's many in my family that I wouldn't want going out. If everything opened up, I would want them to stay home. But I think we have to level the playing field, stop the picking winners and losers, and give people accountability and responsibility in their choices. So I will be supporting this resolution.
Commissioner Meisner, then Commissioner West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So going back to Commissioner Gamash's points about it's the pandemic, which you disagree with, it was the order. I mean, this resolution is a political statement. This is not good policy. Science without policy is useless, but policy without science is dangerous. So again, I want to bring it around to that this is a public health and public safety issue, and that is really the lens, the science and the data. We have laws around our speeds and stoplights, for example. It is not a personal choice for all of us to decide how fast to go down a road and where to stop. Laws are there for public health and public safety. I do agree with Commissioner Brasted, absolutely, and also with you. Some of these things were not fair. I don't know how you can get it fair when it's rolling out a pandemic and trying to navigate through all that. And our numbers are relatively low because, again, we have these strict protocols in place. It was because of these orders that saved lives. And without good regular health in the public, we're not going to have sustainable economic health. So to rush into it without safety measures and science backing it up is not going to be sustainable.
Commissioner West, then Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I wanted to comment that the Constitution contains rights that are not passed in legislatures. And I think everyone admits we have had a suspension of constitutional rights that are allowed for a governor to do. But this governor changes his mind all the time. Just the other day, the churches could have 10, and a few days later, fortunately, he listened to some groups that spoke to him. He increased it. But still, 250 people doesn't allow for many of the people who belong to a very large church to attend. This resolution does not require anyone to do anything. And I think it's really important for people who are vulnerable to be protected. And, Julie already made the statement that we haven't done a very good job of that as a state. We've had a lot of people who have called us and are very disturbed. I mean, Hertz is declaring bankruptcy. A bonfire, Axel Bonfire has closed, and many others, you've heard of them. We're planning, I'm a chair of my class reunion. We are booked for the end of September. And if that gets canceled, that means it'll be 7 months that we have had our constitutional rights suspended. That no governor should be able to do that. And as far as the science goes, in the beginning they said, masks aren't going to do anything. maybe someone who has it might be not spread it as much. And then now they're requiring masks. A week or so ago, the CDC says, well, it's not on surfaces. You don't have to worry about surfaces anymore. To me, that's just licking your finger and seeing it. That's not science. But they've changed things so much over these months that it's hard for me to believe anything they say. So I very much think we should do this, if for no other reason, to support those people who are hurting and hoping that we can influence those who have more power than we do.
Commissioner Reiner, then Commissioner Meisner.
So I just want to address the statement that this is political. I know that's a popular buzzword you use a lot. I just don't think standing up for small business, religious freedom in the Constitution is political. And to stand up for the people that are in Anoka County trying to exercise their freedoms.
Thank you, Commissioner Reiner. Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some commentary to Commissioner West's science comments. True science is fluid, and I don't think, we're all frustrated, I get that, but when you have information that is changing, then you have to adapt your solutions. So that is why absolutely things have changed, because as you're finding more information, you don't want to be going off of old information. So that's my only commentary about that, and thank you.
Commissioner Gamache.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in some of the comments that have been made, I think I've been able to narrow this down to exactly what this is. It basically is asking the governor to open up everything. I'm still questioning whether or not we're supposed to follow CDC guidelines that say 25% of the churches should, that they could have a population of 25% of their congregation at one time, because somebody wants to open it up for the 2,000. Well, the 2,000 is still a percentage, so we're not picking winners and losers, it's a percentage. So are we planning to say, and I think we say it in here many times, because I've heard different ways of saying this, that we don't really want to participate with the CDC guidelines because we want restaurants to open indoors. And I think there are some CDC guidelines saying it's better to open outdoors than indoors. That's why the governor has chosen that route to go. And the churches are going on a percentage, so it doesn't matter if you're a big church or a small church, you still have the same percentage of people that can go to your church. There's also a way for churches to schedule their services on the hour every Sunday if they wish to, so they could go on into the evening hours and make sure everybody comes at a safe time and place. So I'm just trying to think. I think this is saying, let's open up everything. Let's go back to March, whatever the date was that the governor made the first, March 17th or March 20th, whatever it was, and just let it go as it goes, because that seems to be where we're going, and it seems to be then we should be opening up the county and everybody can come back to work on Monday, Monday being June 1st, but I would still say that we should probably keep some people home. And that's what I'm hearing, is that we're just going to open up everything, let it go as that. And just to make a quick point, and then I can be done. The nursing homes, they are in a crisis situation. Assisted livings, they are in a crisis situation. They were not at all prepared, because in this country we don't pay our people enough to work in nursing homes. So many of them work 2 jobs and go from one to another. Now we shut down nursing homes. We said no guests. You can't bring in your family to say hi to you. We've seen all the pictures of people at the windows. We did that. The state did that, and that worked for a little while. But what they found out was that it was coming in with their employees. It was coming in with people that were going from one job to another because they weren't making enough money to live on. And so now we're in a situation where the people that are of those ages are passing away in big numbers here in the state of Minnesota and all across the country. And we do need to do more. They didn't have PPEs in assisted livings for the most part, because They never had to use them before. So they did in nursing homes. They did in nursing homes, but they didn't have as much as they needed. And this thing, just recently in a assisted living right here in Coon Rapids, had a 24-hour period where the entire place, almost the entire place, tested positive for the COVID, and it was 24 hours like that. It just went right through the building. And I have had conversations with a Coon Rapids police officer that's working on this in the area of the city to try to figure out how to slow things and do whatever. And he said what he has seen has been devastating, how fast this moves, and especially in the senior communities. But if we want to just open up everything, we should just go ahead and say it, because it's basically what we're saying here. And again, I can't support this. I can't support it for a number of reasons. I've always supported the Constitution of the United States, but to put it within this and within all this, basically what you're also telling me is that the governor has violated the Constitution. Well, somebody can take him to court and find out if that's true. And no one has yet. Or if they have, we're now waiting until June 1st to find out. Or it could be the chair, the county attorney.
Thank you, Commissioner Gamache. Commissioner Reinert and then Commissioner Breasted.
Okay, so it appears that opposition to this resolution continues to be misrepresented, or continues to misrepresent the resolution. Open all, go back to March. Nowhere in here does it say that.
I just listened to the comments.
Well, I'm just saying that, we're saying to open under CDC guidelines and all the other language that's in here that protects people. It's a misrepresentation to say that we want to go back before the first order and just have business as usual the way it was, and that's not what this is, and that's a misrepresentation of this resolution. We're not saying that everyone with this resolution has to go to these places of business. We're not saying you have to stay home. This is basically giving people their choice and having personal responsibility and common sense guide actions. This does support small business. This supports religious freedom. It does have a statement about the Constitution. Today, sitting here, we just have fundamental differences about, I guess, about the Constitution, about maybe this country and how it should operate. But we've been talking about this and going back and forth, and we have misrepresentation of the resolution and defense of it, and it just seems to be a ping pong back and forth. And at this point, I'd like to call the question.
I got Commissioner Breasted wanting to make a comment in Meisner, and then we'll, unless you want me to act on your call the question motion.
Well, I'd like to call the question. Of course, it needs.
The
a
question's
second to
been
vote.
called.
Yeah.
Is there a second to call the question?
Do we need a?
We need a second. We
do
need a second to the
reversal
motion to
of
call
what?
the question, and I do not have a second yet.
Second.
There is a second to call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the question's been called.
Excuse me, who was the second?
I second.
Commissioner Look seconded to call the question. Now before us is the resolution that has been offered by Commissioner Reinert with the modification in whereas clause 8 that eliminated the words by not interfering with the right to operate. Seeing no further discussion, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say
Nay.
no.
Nay.
There are 2 noes, Commissioner Gamache and Commissioner Meisner. The resolution has been adopted. Next, we'll move on to agenda item, back here, I think we're on item 13. And we will consider Resolution 2020-63, the 2020 Special Board of Appeal Equalization Member Appointments. And they are District 5, Jim Cormier, and District 6, Michael Ruland. Is there an offer of the resolution?
I'll offer it.
Resolution's been offered by Commissioner Gamache. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That item passes. Next, we will move to item 14, and that is committee appointments. We have, first, item A, we'll consider reappointing the following to the Anoka County Children and Family Council for a term ending May 31st of 2023. First is Robert Edwards from the Lee Carlson Center Community Agency Representative, Lieutenant David Tedrow, Anoka County Sheriff's Office, a Community Agency Representative, and Reverend David Leckelt, Lord of Life Church, as a Community Representative. Is there a motion to appoint?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Meisner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner West. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We'll consider those appointed. Next, we'll consider reappointing Matthew Herbst and Michael Kroon to the Coon Creek Watershed District Board of Managers for a 3-year terms ending May 27th, 2023.
So moved.
There's a
Second.
motion by Commissioner Brasted, second by Commissioner West. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? They are unanimously reappointed to the Coon Creek Watershed. And lastly, we'll consider reappointing Judge Sharon Hall, representing members at large, to the Community Corrections Advisory Board for a 2-year term ending April 2022. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Brasted. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gamache. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We will consider Sharon Hall appointed. And next on the agenda, if I can get back to it, I think that wraps us up. Is there anything else to come before the board? Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If there is anyone still listening after our long meeting, I did forget to mention one thing in my PRT report. I have had a couple residents reach out to me asking about, typically we offer property tax assistance resources for seniors. Obviously with COVID-19, that is not going to be happening in that capacity. However, we are coming up with some kind of resource for this program, and we should have a better picture of that in the next couple of weeks, so I'm told from Human Services. So just wanted to put that out there for residents as well, because I know that it is a much valued resource. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Meisner. Seeing nothing else to come before the board, we are adjourned.